excellent.
The brain is often compared to a computer. And the reason is because both your brain and a computer, they both have the ability to store and process information. They can both perform calculations, they can solve problems, they can learn, and they can adapt. Now, as much as our brains and our computers are alike, there's one key possible difference between your brain and your computer or your phone, and that's the operating system. The operating system on your computer or your phone, it continues to receive updates. But my question is, does your brain? Today, we discuss the business of better brains and how we can keep our mental OS up to date. Welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. Hey, as always, if this brings value to your life, will you do me a favor? Will you like, will you subscribe, and share this with other people? I just want to add as much value to as many people as possible. Being born in the 1980s, I've had the privilege of experiencing the birth of some of the most amazing technology that we experience today. It's really hard to imagine life without it now, but I'm going to date myself in saying this, but I can even remember the days before the internet. I can remember back that if you wanted information, you had to read a book. And if you wanted that book, you had to go to a library or you had to go to a store. And if you needed a book from a store, you actually had to go to that store. You didn't order it online. There was no Amazon. There was no next day delivery. I can remember when I first actually got the internet, it wasn't even on a computer at all. It was on a device made by Philips that was called a web TV. And you took this device and you connected it to your television. It had a wireless keyboard and it would give you access to the internet. And the time, this was groundbreaking because everybody didn't have a computer. Looking back now, we had no idea how big the internet was really going to be. At the start, we didn't even really know what the internet was fully at the moment. It actually makes me think of a conversation that was had on the Today Show back in 1994 between Katie Couric, Brian Gumbel, and Elizabeth Vargas. And their conversation now is so funny because they had no idea of what the internet really was. So in the conversation, it's all about trying to discover what the internet is. Now, some of you are watching this podcast by YouTube and you'll be able to see the video. Others of you are listening, but I want you just to take a moment and drop in back in time on this conversation from the Today Show about the internet.
Pass, I wasn't prepared to translate that as I was doing that little tease.
Oh, that's
that little
right.
mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At?
See, that's what I said. Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I'd never heard
Or
it.
around
I'd never
or
heard it
about.
said. I'd always
That's
seen the
right.
mark, but never heard
Yeah.
it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
Yeah, I heard
be
something
around
big
or
fight
about.
up in the lunchroom the other
See,
week.
there it is. Violence at NBC. GE.com. I mean,
Well, Allison should know.
what
do you
is
say to that,
internet
Allison?
anyway?
Internet is that
Massive computer
right,
network.
the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Oh, Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What is
What
it?
does it mean?
It's a giant computer network made up of started from.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like
We've
a
been looking in the
computer
dictionary.
billboard.
It's not in it. It's a computer billboard, but it's
Right.
nationwide, and it's several universities and everything all joined together.
Allison, can you explain what the internet is? I mean, today, we just have no concept of a world without this technology. It happens and moves so fast. The internet has come a long way since then. Thankfully, we've moved past the days of AOL dial-up. Does anybody remember that? Every time you would log on to the internet, it would sound just like this. Now, most of you know nothing about this life. You have no idea what it's like to want to check your email to see what the weather is and to go to your computer to either click on AOL or Netscape, leave the computer sitting for like 10 minutes so it can connect to the internet just so that you can do a simple task. Times have changed so much since then. Back in the day, we had the groundbreaking launch of Windows 95, which changed everything. The launch event gave us the viral video that is now viral of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer dancing at the event. I mean, it was a really big deal as technology was moving forward. But all of this that I'm saying today, as amazing as AOL and Windows 95 may have been back in the time, we've upgraded since then. All of this is to say, since this technology that I was young enough to experience, and I was a kid back then, by the way, but so much has changed. So my question for us today is, if we're updating the operating system in our technology, in your phone and your computers, why are we not doing this for the greatest operating system that we have, and that's our brain? Studies show that in most adults, learning and thinking both plateau and then begin to decline somewhere between the age of 30 and 40. And then that decline actually increases again after the age of 60. So why do we fail to update our mental OS? My question is, are you still operating on a mental Windows 95? And maybe you don't know, so I'm going to give you 4 indicators that your mental OS is out of date. And the first one I'll give you is this, is that maybe you're complacent. You're just complacent in your learning and in your growing. See, when we become complacent, we just settle into where we are, and then we become content with our current level of knowledge and skills. We start to believe that we already know enough, or that there's no need to push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. So this causes us to become stagnant, and then we get trapped in just a cycle of familiarity, and then this limits the ability that you have to learn and to grow, because you've just stayed in a familiar place, and that traps you, and you're no longer learning, and you're no longer growing. Number 2, here's another indicator that maybe your mental OS is out of date, is that you're ignorant. Now, you can be smart and you can be ignorant at the exact same time. So when you're ignorant, you actually have misconceptions or biases or maybe preconceived notions that begin to limit your willingness to explore new ideas. Let me give you an example. Many people resisted some of this technology that I've used as an illustration today. They resisted the technology of computers and the internet and just insisted that pencil and paper was all that we need. Pencil and paper, our filing systems are better, and we don't need that technology in here messing things up. You see, they had a preconceived idea and bias toward the technology, and therefore they were just unwilling to learn and they were unwilling to grow. And see, right now, we're on the brink of this all over again. Many of you who are laughing at me because I can remember the foundation of the internet. In just a few years, you're going to be experiencing that with the birth and the advancement of artificial intelligence. This AI advancement that's on the brink, we're about to get to experience the same thing and make the same decisions again about the advancement of technology and how we choose to receive it. Another indication that your mental OS is out of date is you are incompetent. Like your computer, it has the capacity for an upgrade. Your brain has a capacity for an upgrade. But unless you initiate it, it doesn't happen. You see, your phone gives you a notification that there is a software update. Your computer gives you a notification that your OS needs to be updated, but your brain does not do that. So when we fail to place ourselves in an environment that makes us better, we fail to learn and we fail to grow. And we have the capacity for further learning, but without help or without placing ourselves in that environment, we will never advance. Another indication that you're operating on an outdated mental OS is you're just indifferent. You have an indifference about learning and about growing. Indifference is a lack of interest. It's a lack of investment in the learning process. And this causes you to fail to recognize value and importance of learning new skills and new information, which actually, without learning and growing those skills and that information, it hinders your ability to grow and to develop. Indifference kills curiosity, and a lack of curiosity actually kills motivation. So my question is, do any of these indicators resonate with you or maybe the people inside of your organization? Your mental OS doesn't have to be outdated. And of many strategies that there are, I want to offer just a few key ways today that you can actually exercise and upgrade your mental OS. That regardless of where you are in your stage of life or your stage of your career, your stage of leadership, I want to just give you a few ways that you can engage your brain very tangibly that you can begin growing again today. And number one is that I want you to be a learn-it-all. I want you to just shift your thinking, shift your mindset to be a learn-it-all. See, most of us have heard the phrase, he or she is a know-it-all, and we think about that in a negative way. And at a certain level of success or advancement, we can all begin to think that we know it all, or at least that we know enough. So you may not identify today as a know-it-all, but most of us would probably go, well, I know enough. I know enough to get by. I know enough to do my job. I know enough to lead. I know enough to get by. I know enough. Earlier, we called that indicator complacency. So we have to shift our mindset from a know-it-all to a learn-it-all. A learn-it-all mindset says this. It says, what new thing can I learn today? How can I grow in my knowledge? How can I get better at? What is it that you do every day on your job? What is it that you do every day for your career? What do you do every day as a passion that brings purpose to your life, that brings value to other people? So you have to ask yourself, how can I learn more about that? How can I grow in the knowledge of this? How can I get better at doing this? This mindset actually helps you to foster curiosity, and that curiosity leads to exploration. And then when you begin to explore, you begin to discover. And when you begin to discover, you begin to learn and you begin to grow. Now, for many of us, for all of us, there are no shortage of resources for learning. There's an amazing resource called the World Wide Web. Allison, what is the internet? We have the internet. We have all of this technology literally at our fingertips. And no longer do you have to click to start the internet and then wait 10 minutes just to engage with it. It's instantaneous. We have the beauty of YouTube. Some of you are joining me today by YouTube. I don't know how to fix anything when it comes to mechanical abilities, so YouTube has become my friend to teach me so many skills. We have podcasts. We have online education today. You can earn your degree online. We have certificate programs or programs in your community, if you just research and seek them out, that will teach you all kinds of valuable information. There is no shortage of resources. So ask yourself honestly, do I currently have a desire to learn? And if not, I want you to shift your mindset from a know-it-all to a learn-it-all. The second thing that you can do to really update or upgrade your mental OS is that you can be unpredictable. Be unpredictable. You need to stretch the way your brain functions. So for just a moment, I want you to think about the rhythm of a normal day. From the moment that you get out of bed and you begin doing all the things that you do. And I would challenge you to really recognize, because I think you'll see this if you think about it, that a large majority of your day operates on autopilot, meaning that you rely just on ingrained habits and routines. It means that your actions, your decisions, and your interactions just become automated. You don't even have to think about it. So from the moment you get out of bed and you open your eyes, you get up, you go use the restroom, you brush your teeth, you fix your coffee, you take your shower. You didn't even engage your brain in any of it. It just knew exactly what it was that you were going to do. You operate on autopilot. Your brain has become lazy because it doesn't have to think. For most, the reason that you do this, for most of us, the reason we allow ourselves to live on autopilot is that it's just easy. It's convenient. You've developed an existence that doesn't require extra energy or engagement. You don't even have to think about it. But the problem is that this limits your brain from growing. So in order to take control and then to disengage from this autopilot mode, you have to be unpredictable. Because in autopilot, you've trained your brain to anticipate your next move without even challenging your brain. But being unpredictable causes your brain to pause and process what's happening. Let me give you an example of this. How many of you have driven maybe to a daily destination, just lost in thought, listening to music, maybe this podcast, or you're having a phone conversation, and then you think to yourself when you pull in the parking lot, how did I even get here? Did I stop at that stop sign? Did I run a red light? Like, what happened? I don't even remember driving here. You see, your brain already knew the way. You didn't have to focus. Your brain was basically just driving the car for you. So here's what I want you to do. Instead of taking the same routine route, switch it up. Tomorrow, take a different way to work. Teach your brain something new. Just take a new way. There's a new street that you can take. There's another lane that there's something that you can do just in your daily routine of driving to work that you can switch it up, and it will cause your brain to go, oh, this is not the way that we usually go. This is not where we usually stop. This is not our normal routine. Just switch it up and teach your brain something different. See, our bodies, we have 5 senses, right? And these senses are actually a key to our learning. With every sense that you have, it engages and it activates your brain. So you have to force them to work and stimulate the brain. So let me give you an example in this. If you're right-handed, use your left hand to do everything. Use your left hand to open a door. Use your left hand to brush your teeth. Begin to use your left hand and notice how hard your brain has to focus on functioning with just your left hand. Close your eyes and do a taste test. Don't look at the food. Don't look at the beverage so that you know what it is. Close your eyes, do a taste test, and cause your brain to have to do the work. If your eyes see it, your eyes already tell your brain exactly what it is. And again, there your brain is on autopilot. But if your brain is the one lifting the heavy load of trying to figure this out, it will engage your brain and cause it to activate. A fun thing that me and my 8-year-old like to do is we'll watch animated movies together. He's a child, so he loves animated movies. And so when we watch these movies, sometimes we're trying to determine who the voice actor is. So we'll sit and listen, and we'll try to see if we can determine who the actor is that's playing this animated character. It causes your brain to have to engage, to think, and begin to connect the dots together. See, researchers at Duke University, they call this neurobics, kind of like aerobics, but for your brain, neural. Using your 5 senses to challenge your brain and to spark thought and creativity, it actually increases the workload of your brain, so it begins a mental OS update for you. Another thing that you can do that will be very helpful is you can be a reader. Being a reader is great for your brain. The more you read, the more neural activity that occurs in your brain. This leads to more neural productivity, strengthening all the various pathways that are in your brain. Ultimately, it makes your brain come alive. All of these pathways, it improves your overall cognitive functioning. It helps your ability to actively recall information. It basically exercises your brain. And although most of us, we've been taught this, we know the importance and the benefits of reading, some statistics actually say that up to 42% of college graduates never read another book after they graduate. We disengage from the learning process. We get stagnant. We get comfortable. We say we know enough. We've done that. We put in our time. We don't have to engage with that anymore. But when you read, you upgrade your mental OS by expanding all of your knowledge because you're learning. You increase your creativity, you increase imagination and your vocabulary. It actually helps you to learn new words, new expressions, and new understandings. It improves your memory, your communication skills, your focus, and your concentration. There are great benefits to being a reader. Now, full transparency for me, I'm not what I would call a joyous reader. I'm not an individual that can't wait to curl up on the couch with a good book. It's just not me. I usually actually have to make myself read. But when I find a book that I enjoy and that it adds value to my life, I never regret having consumed from a book because I'm better for it. When I read something that challenges me, when I read something of someone's life that they overcame or that they were able to accomplish, they worked hard, they set a goal, they did something that was extraordinary, it really encourages me. I begin to think, what can I do? What can I apply? How can I get better? How can I sharpen my skills so that I can accomplish this way? It gets your brain activated, it gets it working, and it sparks new creativity. So I would say maybe for this year, set a goal. Set a goal for yourself to read. Some of you are avid readers, and that's incredible. Some of you are like me. It's just not something that you just naturally love to do. But if you set a goal, maybe just read a book a month, 12 books in a year. And it doesn't have to be War and Peace. It doesn't have to be anything large or big or involved, just something that you enjoy. If a book a month isn't doable, read 6 books a year, one every other month. Just find something that you enjoy, read it, and allow it to upgrade your mental OS. And the number 4, here's a great one, is that you can be a storyteller. Be a storyteller. Everyone loves a good story. That's why we like to read books. That's why we like to watch movies or watch television or listen to podcasts. We love stories. Me personally, now in my stage of my favorite stories are personal stories. Both of my parents have passed, and the personal stories that revolve around them are now more special than ever. And there are so many meaningful stories in my life that I can recall. But I'm very aware that there are even more that I have no memory of. Some studies show that replaying a sequence of behavioral events in your mind is as important for learning and memory retention than as reading a book. In other words, just recalling some of the stories of your life. Recalling these memories verbally, telling the story, recounting it verbally with somebody else. When you talk it through with others, it helps to engage the brain in receiving, remembering, and thinking. And in turn, this helps improve your brain function, which does what? It updates your mental OS. Many of us have that grandparent or that person in your life that's going to tell the same stories 1,000 times. Sometimes I get accused of doing this as well. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're becoming that person and everyone is around you. They're just tired of hearing this. We've heard this story 100 times. Well, I say, just let them tell the story. There's actually value to it. If it's you, just tell the people around you, hey, these stories that I'm telling, they're actually updating my mental OS. There's an old saying that says, use it or lose it. And I believe this is true with our mind. Your brain is way more powerful. It's way more capable than any computer, but it must be continually updated. So if you own or you manage a business, one of the greatest things that you can do for your team is to help them update the OS of their brain. Invest in your team and their continued development. Now, I would love to help you and your team develop in all aspects of your organization. If you're an employee, send your boss or your manager this content and ask for continued development. You can actually use the link in the show notes to schedule a free 15-minute personal consultation with me to see how I can help you and your team have an upgrade. And if this added value to you, will you please take a moment? I want you to like, subscribe, and share this with other people. I want to add as much value to as many people as possible. And don't forget, you can also interact with the podcast through all of the social media channels that are listed in the show notes. Thanks again for being a part of the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Go and exercise your mind. Update that mental OS, and we'll see you on the next one.